Welcome on board to the POLICON and many thanks for watching Smart 24 TV. A happy new year 2023, and this is a very first show of the year and clearly a year which is filled up with a lot of potentials for the business world. And I'll tell you the discussions that we are going to be having today may necessarily be rotating around how 2022 has been so far from the legislative perspective, but also what do we expect in 2023? These are some of the high signs that, well, 2023 is likely to be a beneficial one for those in the business world. But however, if you have planned ahead prior, and if at all you've planned accordingly. So a happy 2023 and welcome on aboard to the POLICON, where we discuss politics and economics. You're watching Smart 24 TV, where we drive your business. And our topic of discussion today is basically looking at the legislative analysis of the economic performance of Uganda in 2022. And of course, we shall be breaking down a little bit more of 2023. What should we be expecting and what next should the government do to ensure that Ugandans can go through 2023, which is projected to be a bit hard for reasons to do with the other global shocks that have been happening in 2022. And joining me on set to discuss more of this, I do have Honorable Onekalit Denis, who is the Member of Parliament for Kitgum Municipality. And he's going to be taking us through the entire discussion today. Many thanks for joining us, Honorable.
Yeah, thank you very much, my brother. You've started the show in a very high voltage.
It is a new year.
I'm impressed.
You know, when it's a new year, we expect a lot of
First of all, let me begin
energy
by saying a Happy New Year to the viewers. And in a very special way, I want to thank you, an entire team of Smart 24 TV, for always according us, the leaders, opportunity at POLICON to discuss matters that concern the country. I want to thank specifically as well the management of Smart 24 TV for the worth opportunity, for the good gesture of giving back to society, of good information and education to the viewers. I hope the 2022 that has ended with a lot of things will actually translate into 2023. I hope we shall proceed with what we have been doing.
And
much humble.
Okay, Honorable, what would be your pick for 2022 if you're to look back 2022 economically and maybe a little bit of the political arena? What has been your simple breakdown, briefly, the highlights of 2022 that you would never forget of in office?
Yeah, as a new member of parliament, like I call it new, and from the sense of being in the first term. Yeah, our expectation as leaders, particularly we were new in parliament, was actually too high. And for myself, I want to say that I feel I have not met my expectations.
You're still on the journey.
Exactly. And above all, as a country, there are a lot of things that has been at the crossroads that really made 2022 not celebrating. However, we headed it well, though there are a lot of dramatic issues that occurred.
Yes, during
within that saga.
Yes.
From corruption scandals, coming to giving out contract which is not worth, like to Vinci companies, is on the coffee deal.
The coffee deal.
That we fought vehemently. Coming to the ROCO issues, a lot of billion that were handed over to ROCO that to myself was not worth giving to ROCO. Okay. There are a lot of issues. And also, above all, as parliament, we regret and we mourn the demise of our speaker, the right Jacob Olanya, a very potential leader, the person whom really, as members of parliament, we had absolute hope in him. He left us in dilemma. But fortunately enough, the office is never left open. We did the election, and we have now the Right Honorable Anita, and the Deputy, the Right Honorable Tiger, taking her through. So the highlights of 2022 cross-cut from various angles. Economically, we have encountered so much dramatic events, too much, like I've highlighted briefly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So as we look through 2022, first and foremost was the fact that it was, the biggest highlight would be remembering that is when the country fully reopened after COVID-19. Those are times that we are never used to, where the sectors were just being reopened in phases. And it was in February then when the economy was fully reopened with education and entertainment back on track. When you look at the reopening of the sectors, did it in any way add impact onto where the economy is, for example?
Yeah, definitely. COVID-19 effects will live with us for some time. It has devastated very many sectors, from education section. The students were left at home for quite a long period of time, and that one created a huge gap, learning gap. Syllabus were not even covered all. So a lot of changes were created, and within that spell of the young one being at home, we have encountered a lot of early childhood pregnancies, and a lot of school dropouts was encountered. And also, when the school resumed, definitely not all went back, including the teachers. Some of them diverted into private businesses, so has left education section so vulnerable. Economically, production went down. And of course, when production is down, definitely the economy will be affected. And the thieves were also up with arms. They stole what they could pick.
Even Karamoja had issues with cattle rustling.
Terribly. A lot of money was stolen during that period of time. If you could remember, even the money meant to buy food to be distributed for the people who were actually in the lockdown.
For the COVID response, from the COVID response team.
More than $1 billion, actually $500 million US dollars was stolen. Now you could ask yourself as a citizen, if someone could have the courage of stealing food meant to keep life, then that person is left with stealing coffins
that are going to be keeping these bodies.
It is terrible. So the COVID-19 brought itself terribly. And it has affected not only the government sectors, but even the households, because people were left in hiding, people were not selling their products. Even the international society, international communities, the donors that used to give us a lot of donation.
They decided to cut off this support.
They cut off their grants. I have met very many CEOs and some of the government or non-government organizations complaining that their grant, their donations to support their organization has gone down. Because most of these European countries that used to support us, the Russians and all these other people, cut down. So the effects of the COVID-19 will live with us for some time. Okay. But above all, we as a country need to refocus. When you come to, maybe if you would allow me to pass through. Yes, please. When you come to the holistic look of the economy of the country in 2022, as a legislator, I might look at it from a fiscal point and a monetary point. Now, when you look at the fiscal point and monetary point, the monetary section is how you'll control
the flows of these funds
into the hands of the citizens. Now, the physical section, it is sustainability of growth, basically,
of this economy,
supplies and all this kind of thing, the economy. So when you look at this entire sector, you realize the three arms of government has a lot of roles to play to ensure that the economy of this country is really sustained. Right from the executives, which is headed by the president, coming to legislation, which is headed by the Right Honorable Speaker, coming down to the judiciary. And all the three arms of government has roles to play to ensure that the economy is stabilized. But above all, the question and the biggest challenge goes back to the head of state, as President Museveni. He has a lot of things to offer on the table. There was a day I made a comment that the president seems to run this country like his private enterprise.
Just like a home?
Just like a home.
Okay.
Because there are certain things that if you look at the records of 2022, worth not to have happened. But indeed they happened. We have very good government programs that remain in paper.
Implementation is very poor.
Let me give an example.
Okay.
How dare would the government, with all its sectors, come up with a program which is good?
Yeah.
Salary increment of science teachers by 300%. And also increment of salary of the UPDF officers.
The security forces. Yeah.
You get it? And they would pronounce it to the beneficiaries and to the whole country before even budgeting for that particular money.
Before knowing where the money is coming from.
Where the money is coming from. Even not before knowing where the money is coming from, before even knowing who are the beneficiaries.
At the end of the day.
How many are the science teachers? Surprisingly, up to now, the government is still fidgeting to define who is a science teacher.
Yes, because even the arts teachers at the time were complaining.
Also a science teacher, because I've told you a scenario whereby a mathematics teacher has been left out. That you're not a science teacher.
You're not a science teacher because you're only teaching mathematics.
Now, it was laughable when I heard my good friend Gobi,
the
permanent
secretary to the Treasury,
when he made a comment that what caused the delay of salary payment? All this, what if you would recall, most of the government sectors, the teachers and many other offices, workers, their salaries delayed for some long time. So what Ngobe came out with, the statement he made, was that the 1.7 billion that was released the second quarter in September to specifically handle issues of salary payment, gratuity, and pension, that the 1.7 billion will be used particularly for that three sections: salary, gratuity, and pensions. But then again he said, what delayed the payment of salaries was because of the government inclusion of salary increment
before the budget,
and UPDF, before putting it in the budget. Now that's why I would mention that it seems the president just wake up and mention things.
Even before the other people are involved.
Before other people are involved. Now that one has caused a lot of saga in the country. Not only did it affect those who were supposed to earn salary on time and did not get them on time, but it has also affected the mood in the classroom. And the art teachers also believe they deserve.
Some of them actually
just there for appearance in classes. I have heard of a story whereby teachers would just go to school because they are demanded to be there, not by heart. So that increment affected the entire learning system. So you can see. So there is a big problem there. So if President Museveni would get an opportunity to sit down himself and also analyze the interest of this country and realizes that indeed this country is bigger than him. This country needs collective management. This country needs consultation before any decision is made. I believe there will be changes in the year 2023. Okay. But if we enter 2023 with the same mentality that we have witnessed in 2022, even if we talk, we naturally would say you talk until cow comes home in the evening, until chicken goes up to roast. No changes will be made. But the most fundamental issue that can guide the economy of this country to change from the perspective of the 2022 bad scenarios to a better one in the 2023 can only be done if the executives, who is the head of state, accept to really give neutral ground, not to interfere with parliament business, not to interfere with judiciary. Then definitely I believe things will work on well.
Well, when
that is number one.
Okay. When you mention about the president, it takes me back to some of the statements he made that if anyone is to sacrifice a person over the Vinci coffee deal, then it should be him. And 2022 was the same situation when we got to realize that Uganda withdrew from the 2007 coffee agreement. Then at the end of the day, we heard of the Vinci coffee person who is coming into a new name to the Ugandan coffee farmers and also to members of parliament who ideally had nothing to do with this person. They never knew who Vinci was. And of course, looking back through his history or her history into the coffee industry, it was nowhere to be seen.
I did research. I tried to Google to find out who Vinci company is during that saga when we were debating it at parliament. To your dismay, you realize that this is a newly formed company. Now, besides being newly formed, who is Vinci?
Yes, that's the question.
It's a big question. Now, there are some cohorts of people, I call them clans of corrupt officials who just dwells in that circle.
Okay.
Now, the Vinci is actually a tips of the iceberg.
Of what is yet to be unveiled.
What is actually happening in this country. If you look at the holistic section of industrialization, industries in this country, the so-called international companies, the so-called foreign investors are actually not foreign. There are our leaders here in the country who covers themselves with rare names like Vinci, for example. And these are leaders who gives themselves 25 years of tax holidays for their companies, 15 years of tax holidays for their companies. But the real suffering person like me and you, who has a local content industry, who has begun an industry in Uganda or a production of, say, soap and any other thing in this country, are not given the opportunity. So the real thing goes back into the top officials, those who take credit and those who boast of controlling this country. They are the one making all this mistake. The Vinci issue, we discussed up to now. We will discuss, it will take you back to Luboa, hospital construction, the billions of money that we have spent there, which is inconsequential. The results has never been realized. Now, you realize that definitely this country deserves not only law to be implemented, but prayers as well.
On top of these laws.
It is terrible. If you look at some of the so-called foreign investors who hide behind the name foreign to get accreditation. Let me give you an example. There is a company that came to Uganda with nothing. When I mean nothing, I mean the real word nothing. They registered. The government gave them land with everything, the land title and everything, as investors to invest in. They use the same land that the government has given them to mortgage in the bank so that they get capital to start production. You can imagine. And they were given the money. And they're doing production. And they are given 10 years of tax holidays.
Because most of the investors are given.
That's a big challenge. It's a very big problem. Let me give you another example. When you look at Bitco, Bitco is a good company. I'm just giving it with honesty and without biasness.
Okay.
I'm not against Bitco, but I want to give an example. Bitco is a big company. Now, when Bitco came, Bitco was given tax holidays.
In the first phase
in the first place, about 10, 15 years. Now, when they were given that period, now still they entered into agreement with the government to grow palm tree, to get palm oil, which is one of the material for making soap. Now, the agreement with the government for the people of Kalangala and the Kasese and these other people who grow the palm trees was that they should be given seedlings for palm trees. They plant, when they mature, they are only supposed to sell to Bidco, not to any other mushrooming companies or local companies in the country. Now, Bidco is benefiting cheaply from them, and this is the same Bidco who is selling White Star in the market, the most expensive one, and yet the cost of production to them is the lowest than other companies. I'm giving an example, not with biasness. Now, if really we love this country, we would really make sure that we collect revenues. And this comes to URA. URA levy is a very selective collection of revenues. There are sectors that milk huge finances, huge money, and that would have helped the economy, that would have assisted the budget, that would have reduced the burden of going for borrowing loan to facilitate this country. But URA has very selective collection of taxes. There are certain companies that would travel outside to buy material, like some of us would do, but when they're entering, you will hear order from above. You are supposed to clear that without taxation. Clear this good. And the country will be losing about 50 million, 10 million, 1 billion. Goods are entering. And yet to other people who are small subsistence running of businesses are being squeezed to death. So when you talk about the coffee deal, come to Rocco. Rocco was declared by very many banks as bankrupt. They have a lot of loans that they failed to service.
From all these particular commercial banks.
Commercial banks, yeah. Rocco has failed to pay our workers, our Ugandan workers, who works with them for some time and laid them off. This is the same Rocco that came asking we parliamentarians to accord them opportunity and give them more money so that they revamp Rocco. Back again. Why would he give them money?
Because some of the members of parliament did agree on to that.
Very few. But of course, as you know, when the speaker has interest in certain things, the high will have it. Okay. Even if you make noise, you stand up, that is upon you. That is a challenge that we got. It's a big challenge. So certain things, look at in my home area, actually. They are tiak sugar. They are tiak sugar. We had given money to the company. Very big money. In fact, the share capital, government is supposed to have almost 60% or even more, 80% or more. But beside that money we invested, we are continuing to invest. And yet Atiak is close. And the workers who are there are laid off. The lands we gave are not being put into right use. So all this kind of mismatch
brings a lot of drama.
Brings a lot of drama in the 2022, which drama, I pray, should not proceed this year.
Oh, okay. Honorable, after the break, I want us to discuss about some of these bills that are now, that were put in Tulo, started in Tulo. 4 of them. There's some 4 vital ones, which also includes the Computer Misuse Act of 2022. That one also created some huge chaos in the country. And when we do return after the break, we shall be discussing more about the legislative analysis of the economic performance of Uganda in 2022. You're still watching the POLICON, where we discuss politics and economics.